Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome back to this week's episode of Podiatry Marketing. With me, as usual, is Jim McDannald. And how are you doing today, Jim?
My name is Jim McDannald. I haven't heard you say that my last name in maybe year and a
100
half. I don't
episodes?
know how long has it been.
Something like that. With me is Big Jim Mac. How you doing today,
Okay, okay,
Jim?
geez, that's a lot of pressure. So yeah, thanks Tyson for the real introduction.
Uh, so how is it in your part of the world?
Uh Life is good in Montreal. No complaints. I'm happy to jump into some another exciting podiatry marketing topic today.
Okay, what's the topic on?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the kind of 5 key actions for enhancing patient experience and online reputation. I think, a lot of the podcasts we put out, we kind of touch on patient experience a little bit.
Mm,
Sometimes we get into sometimes specifics, but not necessarily what are those actions that people can take both to improve patient experience and online reputation. So we're going to kind of dig into, how podiatrists and how people in the clinic can really prioritize that experience. It's not really about providing just excellent care, but it's also kind of positioning the practice in the digital landscape. So really going to jump into those 5 actionable steps that people can take today.
okay, so where 5 steps. We like our 5 steps. I think five is so much easier to manage than seven.
Yeah, 7 can be a little tricky, but we'll go with 5.
Okay, so what's the first step?
So step number 1 is to implement a comprehensive feedback system. We've talked a little bit about patient surveys in the past and even online reviews a bit, but you really need to establish a system for collecting patient feedback and various touch points, right? This can be post-visit surveys, it could be feedback forms, on your website, or even during your email newsletter, soliciting some feedback from folks because we can sometimes be blind to what's going on in our own practice. We're busy seeing, 30 to 40 patients a day. We don't always see what happens out front with the interactions between staff and the patient. So, you need to find ways to make sure that you're providing the kind of the best patient experience possible. And the only way to do that is really by setting up a system to solicit and to kind of gather all that feedback. And there's some real benefits that can happen by doing this. Regular and real-time feedback is going to allow you to address those concerns promptly. Instead of someone's not doing something that is pleasing to the patient, sometimes you're going to see it crop up in a one-star review. And if you can kind of nip that in the bud before that happens, it can be really, really helpful to make sure that, not only are you providing every patient a great experience, but you're kind of avoiding any kind of hit to your reputation because people are, usually going to talk about negative experiences online. And you wanna make sure you can try to get in front of that.
Yeah, no, that's true. And even when you just mentioned even a newsletter that you do, is is don't just put it out there without asking your patients, hey, did you receive the newsletter? And getting live feedback from them. What did you think of it? Do you think there's anything we could change? Is there anything we can do to make it better? And even though you're always going to get a few people unsubscribed, so don't get upset about that. But it's the people who don't who stay subscribed, is trying to get feedback from them to actually make the newsletter better, to add or subtract things.
Now that's a perfect example, do they like the newsletter? What aspects do they like about it? Even like their from the time that they make their appointment either on the phone or an online form, what are those critical moments where you can either provide like a kind of a wow patient experience versus
Yeah.
it can kind of go down a path where they're gonna be unhappy, right? So, if you can pinpoint when those different interactions are, like we talked about in the past, like car parks, the cleanliness of your office, the wait time, what they thought about the onboarding process. Either you kind of did it outside of the clinic, in the clinic. What do they think about the weight room experience? Did they have to, what was the wait time once they got into the treatment room? Were they satisfied with the care they provided, the communication, the interaction with the doctor, interaction with staff? There's a lot of different things you can try to solicit feedback from, and you won't know until you ask. So setting up a system is really, really important.
Yeah, it's even got me thinking, even when I do a webinar, for example, and I know people have registered, and I know there's a certain percentage of people who don't watch the webinar, and there's a certain percentage who do, and it tells me how much of they watch. But even getting in touch with those people and asking them, what was the process like to register for the webinar? Because I used to use Zoom and now I use Webinar Ninja. So it'd be interesting asking people, how do you find the process of registering? because there might be some things that I can actually improve upon. But if I don't ask for feedback, I'm never going to know.
No, exactly. Over time, if you want to like be continuously improving your practice and the patient experience and kind of improving the quality of care as well, you really have to put in those systems and you have to ask those questions. And it's really, really important component of having a better patient experience.
And sometimes we can just assume that every change we make, the patients love.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
Well, it's kind of like when I'm working with a podiatry clinic, right? And they see a website from their perspective, right? They see, oh, it's my resume, it's my online calling card. It's all about me on, I don't think podiatrists say that, but like you look at it through your own lens.
Yeah.
But when you step into the shoes of the patient, whether it be in the surveys or getting this feedback from them or the website itself, you have to think about, go to a different go to a dentist website, go to a general practitioner's website and see what that flow is like and how you feel during it. Is it frustrating? Is it, are you getting the information that you're looking for? If you
Mm.
have, you really want to make sure that the services you provide are front and center, but it's really from that patient point of view. And the same thing goes with feedback. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself an opportunity to see, by them sharing the feedback with you, it makes you more empathetic and you can really kind of understand what they're going through in a way that if you think that every change you make or your current system is perfect, then you're going to have your head in the sand. And you're really not going to have that. You're kind of missing a huge opportunity to be a better practice.
Yeah. And it's funny that we probably have all seen changes made with other companies and other businesses that annoy the hell out of us. And they never ask us, did we like the change or not? So it makes sense. Like even, I don't know if you have I have an Apple TV that I have at home. And the old remote control was cool. Loved it. The new remote control, I couldn't stand it initially. Now I know I'm better with it now. But initially that change, it was an awful change. But it wasn't just me. My daughter, who was a lot younger, so it wasn't an age thing, she went, this remote control is awful. I still prefer the old one. So it makes you realize any change you're making in business is ask your patients, give us some feedback, like whether it's website or whether you've moved something around, you've changed the design or something, get the feedback to know that you're moving in the right direction, you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
What is number 2?
So number 2 is optimizing your online listings and monitoring your reviews. I think, I've had this happen with multiple clients in the past as they have the kind of the name of their clinic, the address, and the phone number. And if you've moved locations, if you bought a practice from somebody else, or the practice has changed names, this information can be really disorganized and really confusing all over the internet, unless you're willing to kind of you yourself as the clinic owner or working with someone to go to make sure that all of this information is clear and coherent across every website where a patient might show up, because you'll be surprised, if Yelp has one address or Google Business Profile has another one, and they type in Google and then they decide to go check that address out and it's not an up-to-date address. You can have a patient show up on the other side of town at a competitor or another clinic's office, and they probably welcome them in with open arms. So you
I've
really
heard
have
about that happening.
you really have to be careful about these online listings. So you really need to make sure that the information, that your name, your address, your phone number, even your website is clear and very accurate across different places online.
Yeah, that's really good because my wife is currently doing some part-time work for an occupational therapist. And all of a sudden, a patient didn't turn up. And then he rang up and said, where are you? And my wife told him where they were. And now I'll point out, he didn't make the appointment the day my wife was working. So this is not on her. But they had moved 4 years previously. So they're in their new location where they are 4 years ago. But this patient, they didn't change all of their listings. There were some of their old listings still had the old address there. So the guy's gone to the old address. But also at the same time, I think if someone's rung the clinic and they made an appointment, it's always asking, do you know where we are? And then making them say where you are
Right.
If they just go, oh yeah, I know exactly where you are, but you moved 12 months ago, they might be thinking about the old address, not the new address.
Yeah, it's hugely important to confirm that location to make sure they don't show up somewhere else. It's also really important for your online reputation that you're monitoring Google Business Profile, Google reviews, Yelp reviews, any kind of healthcare specific review platforms. You really need to have your eyes on those platforms. And there's different software programs you can use. So it's not like you have to push refresh and check them on a daily basis. There are different softwares you can use that will send you when these reviews show up. But it's really, really important. Obviously, when you get a positive review, you want to make sure you thank that patient in a HIPAA compliant fashion. But I also want to be aware of the one stars when they come up, and
Mm.
wondering, you have to have a plan and a system to approach. How are you going to approach those? How are you going to respond to those in a HIPAA compliant way? How is there ways to get in communication with the patient that's left those to understand what the complaint is, at a deeper level to try to negotiate with them. Not kind of in the eyes of the public or online, but those things are really, really important. You don't want to just like let those things simmer out there. You really have to take an active approach to online review platforms.
Yeah, someone I was talking to recently, and they only had 2 reviews. One was 5-star, which they replied to, and one was 1-star. And so therefore their review overall was 2.5. And I said, that doesn't look good. I said, you
Right.
should have responded. They said, no, I don't respond to idiots. I've gone, okay, okay, fair enough. Don't respond to idiots. If you don't want to respond to idiots, I said, you need to go out there and really push to get more positive Google reviews. I said, because if somebody sees 25 stars and 1-star, no one's going to pay any attention to that.
Right.
They'll know. And you could read through the review. You could just tell if everybody else is saying one thing about you, one person saying the opposite, then you know that person had a bad day or it was just a one-off thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you need to pay attention. You
Yeah,
need to pay attention
you
to
have
it.
to pay attention, and you also have to engage, right? So when you engage with reviews, it really demonstrates that you value patients' feedback. You're kind of fostering a level of trust. They're not just like shouting into the void. They're like, raising their online fist. They're all pissed off, right? Like there's
Yeah,
a chance for you to kind of be transparent about things. You're not going to share things you shouldn't share in those on those negative review replies, but at the same time, positive reviews and high ratings are a signal to Google that you should be rated higher. And like you talked about, when someone sees, you know, two reviews, 2.5 stars, and then they see 200 reviews, 4.7 or 4.8, there's an instinctual feeling. We know which direction they're going to head towards, right? So,
definitely.
and you have to do that on a consistent basis. You have to engage, you have to be active. Either you or someone you're working with needs to really mind the store in that way.
Yeah, it depends how many competitors are in your area and what they're looking for. But I know if I'd gone to a town for a holiday and we were looking at restaurants, there's a big list of restaurants in the city, and you're scrolling down, anything that is under 4, I'm not even looking at. I'm not even opening it to see what is there. I'm starting with everything that is going to be like 4 and above. So there could be a restaurant that's absolutely fantastic, but they've never really pushed for reviews. They've got a couple of bad ones, which has pulled them down to 3.8, and they haven't responded. My wife straight away is just like, especially accommodation. If there's accommodation that's under 4, she's going, we're not staying there. Especially if they're bad reviews and the establishment has not replied,
Yeah.
because it shows they don't care.
Exactly. They're out. They're checked out. You're just gonna shout into the void there.
Yep. Okay. Number 3.
Number 3 is kind of personalizing your patient communications. You want to utilize patient data when if you have a HIPAA compliant system that you can utilize that and it kind of personalize the type of information you're sending out, whether it's like recalls for orthotics or recare for diabetic foot checks. If you can really tailor those communications to very specific types of patients or diagnoses in a HIPAA compliant fashion, it's a great way to connect with people, and they're going to feel much more valued and understood, like you're actually talking to them. I think there's still room for, there's different levels and different kind of degrees of personalization. People like to get appointment reminders. That's a personal way to help them not be late or help them not forget. It shows that you do care and that you want to see them in the clinic. Also, after they've gone, to the clinic, follow up messages, can be really, really helpful to kind of, like whether it be, asking for a review, but also just checking in on them, whether it be your staff making sure that they're doing well. And also some educational content related to specific topics or different types of care that your clinic provides can really, make it more personal. Sometimes you're sharing things. We've talked about this in the past too. It doesn't always have to be 100% medical, right? Showing your human side and connecting with another person. I know you like to eat burgers and do barbecue and,
I do.
and even like, when you're out in the community, when you're working at events or volunteering, it shows a personal side that people will connect with. So it doesn't always have to be make appointment, make appointment. There's ways to personalize your communications so you really connect with current and future patients.
Yeah, I always thought one of the greatest things that we used to do was if a patient told us that they were into, say, hamburgers, for example, and we went somewhere and we traveled somewhere and we had a really great burger, we'd take a photo of it and we would email it to the patient and just say, hey, during our last conversation, you said you go to Townsville on a regular basis. We were just down there. We went to this burger place. Have a look at this one. What do you reckon about this? Have you tried it? And this could have been 4 weeks after the patient had even seen us. But we would try and make mental notes of what our patients' likes and dislikes were and what they were interested in. So if we came across something, we could maintain that contact with them. And it just had that personal touch. And it just showed that we listened to not just their problem, but we actually listened to them as a person. And we remembered the conversation.
Yeah, I think I touched pretty heavily on kind of more the digital side of things, but when you're in that treatment room with the patient, really showing empathy and, really kind of the way you're kind of personalize your communications with them, right? Everyone has their own kind of communication styles, right? So kind of meeting them on their level, even during the patient encounter shows that, you're really willing to, you know, build a strong patient practitioner relationship to really, and that's going to, it's going to retain patients better. Patients are going to be more satisfied when they feel that you care for them, and you're more on a personal level as a patient. They're more likely to become advocates and be more loyal to your practice. So, really sharing positive experiences with your patients, both online and offline, is really a great way to keep the care personal, right? Because these people are dealing with injuries or the wound or the thing, even when they walk out of your clinic, but they feel like you listened to them and didn't treat them as a diagnosis, you're going to build that loyal patient following.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's we even when we used to do our recall letters. Well, one of the things we try to do whenever you're having an appointment with a patient is even in your clinic notes, part of the conversation, if they mentioned anything about their life, is to try and keep note of that. And then if we were doing a recall letter, the recall, hey, dear Jim, hey, time to come in for your orthotic recall. And down the bottom, in handwriting, P.S. By the way, Jim, did your son get in the Australian soccer team? Or did your son make it into this representative team that they were going for? And that, to me, that lets the patient know that, wow, that was a conversation we had a year ago. They may know that you've even written it in your notes. It might be pretty obvious. But to take the time of handwriting that little comment in there with a question mark, which means they're more than likely to want to come in because they want to answer that question. It's like an open loop.
For sure.
Okay, what's number 4?
Number 4 is improving patient experience through leveraging technology for patient convenience. So, when you can, not every technology solution is going to work like gangbusters. I know that some of the, for exactly the early chat bots and some of the ways of trying to schedule through chat bots wasn't great, but there's a lot of great new kind of online convenient technologies that are really helping people save time, whether it be appointment booking, like we talked about previously. Sometimes you can on board by filling out an online form at home before you even show up at the clinic. So when you show up at the clinic, you don't have to spend 10, 15 minutes filling out paperwork on a clipboard, and then they have to go back and scan it and those things. It can not only help the patient, but really improve operations in your clinic so your staff has more time to really care about the patient experience. Sometimes, I've heard positive and negatives about patient portals. Some people like them, some people don't. But, when you have a website and online services that are user friendly and kind of optimized for mobile, it's going to be really, really helpful for patient convenience, especially, as the population becomes more tech savvy. Obviously, if you're working with people maybe 70 and over, it's not such a big deal. But, if you're wanting to kind of, age with the young Gen Zers and some of the millennials, you'll want to stay on top of these things so you stay relevant and you're convenient for the different ways that people want to have interact with your practice and interact with your clinic.
Oh, convenience is just such a big thing, and especially with younger people now, because they want everything to just flow. Anything that seems clunky to them seems outdated, and they will move on pretty quickly. So if you have a younger demographic, yeah, ideal patient, then you want to make sure that you are using technology to the best of your ability because they're expecting it.
Yep.
To give them
The
a paper, if you gave my daughter a paper form, she'd probably, what do I do with this? And now what do I do with it?
Yeah, there's kind of modern patient expectations, right? With we talked about Amazon Prime or Netflix. People expect things and have an overall experience that's a lot different than it was in the past. So this is not only going to boost patient satisfaction, but it's also going to position your practice as forward thinking and more patient centric. So you want to make sure that you distinguish yourself from competitors in the local market, and by doing by making things more convenient for your patients, they're going to be very happy.
Yeah, but even we had a recent local election. And my daughter, first time she got to vote, so we took her down. We went through the whole process. We're sitting in the car driving back. She goes, "Why?" I said, "Why?" She goes, "Why did we have to leave our house to go somewhere to get a slip of paper to tick some boxes or put some numbers in there, and then have to go and put it in this box, which is then going to go somewhere else. So then some people unfold these pieces of paper and they all sit there and they count them. And then there's all these other people standing around watching that they're counting them properly. And she goes, "Why isn't this all just done online?"
It's a good
She goes,
question.
why don't I just have a password that I put in that's attached to me? I'm the only one that has it. I put my vote in, a computer calculates everything. I can't be used twice. And she's only 19, first time voting. She's already asking these questions. So that goes back to the whole convenience. The whole voting process was inconvenient. So what are we doing in our practice, which people are questioning, why are you doing it that way?
Totally. I think it's a huge, the world's changing, right? Whether it's, through everything is through our phone now these days, it seems like. So I can only imagine the future that there'll be some way that we vote a little bit more in a convenient fashion.
But you know what I told my daughter? I said, it's the fun of doing it. I love election day. I love going down. I love people trying to slip pieces of paper in my face and people yelling at each other every now and then. I said, that's the fun of voting.
For sure.
Okay. What's the fifth and final tip?
Yeah. Last but not least is, respond actively and empathetically. Really to provide a great patient experience, you really want to develop a strategy, how you respond to not only to reviews, but to online comments, to comments that people bring into your practice. Always think about being empathetic and really comply with patient privacy laws whenever possible, right? Like you talked about previously, that you don't want to, if someone's negative towards you, you have to absorb that and try to put it out there, the situation in and out there that just shows you care, and that you're empathetic to what's going on in the situation. If you can handle some of those things privately, fantastic. But it really can be beneficial when whenever you're communicating both online and offline, you really want to have a response strategy that shows that you take patient concerns seriously and you're committed to resolving issues. And that's really what's most important when if you're not responsive, people are going to think you don't care.
Mm.
So if you can amplify the positive effects of the favorable reviews or the favorable feedback that you get, it's going to enhance your online reputation and really build and grow patient trust in you and your practice.
No, I couldn't agree more, especially the empathy side of things, because no matter what a patient does, no matter what they say, sometimes you've got to try and put yourself in their shoes. And I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and says, "You know what, I'm just going to destroy my podiatrist this morning." It's just something about them. I'm just going to get online and destroy them. So there's always something underlying, and I think we've got to be aware of that.
No, 100%. Like, some people are having a bad day or something's going on in their life that you have no control over, but you can, during that 15, 30, 45-minute visit, however long they're in your practice, if you show that you care, you're empathetic, you're trying to do the best by them, and it's not only sometimes what you say, it's how you say it and how you treat them,
Oh
and it kind
yeah,
of, it's not only sometimes your body language or if you make them feel like a priority, it's gonna, if someone's kind of domineering your time, that's a little bit different than, what I'm talking about here. But when you show someone that they are important to you and you not only say it, but you show in action, it communicates volumes. And like I talked about, you're going to build trust. You're going to provide a great patient experience when you put these things into action.
Mm. Yeah, I like what you said then too about it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. I remind my wife about this all the time. She doesn't listen to this podcast. I can get away with that joke. But it's true. I've seen people argue, friends, you'll see a husband and wife, and they'll be arguing over something. And then he might walk out or she'll walk out. And, and I've said to them, I go, it's not what you said. It's how you said it. I said, you could use exactly the same words, but it's the tonality of your voice. It was your body language. It's all these things that can just escalate a situation.
Yeah.
But also going back to, we're talking about just the empathy side of things though. Some patients who see us are in pain and we can't feel their pain. And sometimes pain makes us do stupid things or say, our fuse can be a lot shorter when we're in pain. So I think it's important to be aware of that.
Yeah, give the patient the benefit of the doubt. And like you talked about, we don't live their lives. You don't know what it feels like. So obviously we can't help every single person. And maybe there are going to be times when we just don't get along with the patient and we're not the best fit for them. But at the same time, when you bring it, when you walk into the treatment room and you have empathy, you're open to listening and letting them be heard. It's going to have a huge impact on your practice and the way that you're developing a great patient experience.
Okay. So anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I think that's good.
I think it was a good topic. Okay, Big Jim, this has been fun once again, and I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Sounds great, Tyson.
Okay, see ya.
Bye now.